Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is you're having to be watching this very video. It's Naturally Nat, Naturally Nat, Naturally. I'm here to show you some cooking stuff. We're gonna do outdoor things. We're gonna look at abandoned houses. We may even go camping. But today what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a rhubarb pie. This is the time of year where we have plenty of rhubarb. If you have it growing outside, man, it can get just ubiquitous where you just have it everywhere and it's like, what am I going to do with all this rhubarb? Well, one thing you can do is make a pie. And a lot of times people think making rhubarb pie is a lot of work, but I'm going to show you some corners to cut and make it doable. We've got some things here that we need to get started. I got 4 cups of, and I wouldn't call this finely diced, but fairly small, chopped rhubarb. I have 1 1/3 cup granulated white sugar. I have 6 generous tablespoons of flour. I have 1 tablespoon of butter cut up, 2 9-inch pie crusts that you either could make yourself, use your grandma's recipe, or you could even cheat and get the kind from the grocery store. That works well too. And a secret ingredient, which is 1 to 3 drops of red food coloring. And I'll explain kind of where we're going with all of that here. So you want to have your rhubarb chopped up, and then go ahead, if you've got your crusts, I got everything kind of done already today for us. One thing you'll want to do when you put your crusts in, whether you make them yourself or you get the kind that come in a box from the store, is you want to make sure that you don't stretch. That's a kind of a newbie mistake that you can make. You can stretch your pie dough, and then your pie, when it bakes, it won't have a good shape to it. So you kind of want to do what I'm doing and ease that crust down in. Don't force that crust in any way. Okay? Next thing we want to do is, and that might seem like a lot of flour that you use in this recipe, and you kind of need a lot of flour because the rhubarb has a lot of water in it. So we put the flour in here and the sugar. Okay? And then give it a good, where's my whisk here? Give it a good mix. And you want it, what you're doing here is you're wanting to make sure the ratio to flour and sugar is equally mixed up, because the flour is going to thicken as this cooks. There's going to be a lot of water that leaches out, and you kind of need 6 generous tablespoons of the flour to thicken while it's cooking in the oven. So you want to make sure this is really well mixed. Then the next thing that you want to do is you're going to want to take this, and I have this in my instructions here. You want to, about a 1/4 of this, you want to go ahead and sprinkle over the bottom of your pie crust. And what that does is that's going to keep the pie from sogging out on the bottom. Okay? And I think that's a 1/4 here. Yep, a 1/4. About a 1/4 of this. And you just kind of guess, right? Just kind of guess, and that's what I'm doing here is I'm just guessing at about how much. That's about a 1/4. Maybe another handful. What would you say, Daniel? Is that about a 1/4?
Yeah, that looks about right.
We got our cameraman Daniel here. Then the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and just plop it all in. Plop in all the diced. And you know, with this dish, you can get kind of loosey-goosey with it. If you happen to have 5 cups, 5 cups work just as good as 4. I've done it with 5 cups. I'm going to have extra rhubarb here today that I'm going to make probably next week for y'all. And I'm going to show you a really easy, super good, slightly healthy rhubarb crisp recipe. This is going off to some friends, and I'm actually not going to taste it. But next time we get together and we make the rhubarb crisp, Daniel, our cameraman, is going to have the first bite.
I can't wait.
There we go. So, now what we want to do is put the rest of our mixture sprinkled around like this, or you can use your hands, that's fine too. So what you're doing is, by putting a 1/4 of it down below and then putting the rest of it on top, is you're ensuring that it's going to get thick and the pie is going to be kind of creamy, if you will. Otherwise, you don't want a runny, watery pie, and I think that's what some people really worry about and when they're making a fruit pie, especially a rhubarb pie, because rhubarb, just like celery, has lots of liquid. Okay, That's probably good enough. Next thing we'll want to do is we'll want to add our 1 tablespoon of butter. I should have took this right out of the refrigerator because it's a little bit sticky. That's fine.
So this is one of those things where you don't have to have the butter warmed up to room temperature?
No, and that reminds me with the pie crusts, when you make them, make sure that you just took them out of the refrigerator. Like, don't space out. Take your crusts out an hour before you're going to make a pie, or your dough is going to be kind of cranky, right? You want it to be cool and firm, okay? So we got the butter on. The secret ingredient. Okay, so the secret ingredient is 2 drops of red food coloring. I'll put that, maybe 1 right there, maybe even 3. You could even do 3. And as this cooks down, this is going to make everything a pretty pink color, okay, as it cooks down. The last 2 things we got to do here is do the crust. And all I'm doing in here is you just want to fold this under and over. Under and over. Under. What I'm doing is I'm going under this crust, like that. And here's the thing, there's no firm rules of must do. So if your grandma said, never do this, it's just all, a galette is just a pie without being in a pan. And there's no rules to a galette. And I don't think there's really too many rules to making a crust. Okay, so under and over, all the way around. Now what you want to do is finish it and flute it, okay? There are a lot of ways to do it, but I'm just going to show you what I think is just the easiest one. And that's this. We're fluting it around. You could use a fork. I think that's the way my mom and my grandma always did it, was they used tines of a fork. And I think that's okay. But whether you do tines of a fork or this way of fluting it, you want to make sure you're firm with it, because when it bakes, these firm edges are gonna get a little fuzzy. And you kind of don't want that. You kind of can't help it sometimes. But there we go. It's that easy. The last thing that you want to do is you need to have a way for it to vent the steam out. So there's all kinds of artsy ways to do it. What I just do is 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Gently stab your pie.
Gently stab your pie. Now, the next thing that I forgot to do, but I'll get out an egg real quick, is you could do an egg wash, or you could do a water wash, or egg and a little bit of water mixed together really well, and then use a pastry brush and go over that. So I am going to do that next. Okay, now that I got everything I need, I forgot the egg, I'm going to put this egg in it. And again, you don't have to do this. I think it just makes it a little prettier. Gives it a little color. There is no really right and wrong way in here.
And this is just 1 beaten egg?
1 beaten egg, yep. I didn't add any water. I just was like, you just kind of go, eh.
Do you expect to use the whole thing or just part of it?
Part of it, and sometimes what I do is I'll put it in a little bag and then store this in the freezer for the next time I make a pie. A lot of people don't know you can do that, but you can. You can freeze part of an egg yolk and use it for something else or another pie. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do, this is optional, but what I like to do is you can either use regular sugar or you can use sanding sugar, which is like a fancier sugar. I'm just going to use this regular sugar here.
Because we're not that fancy.
We're not that fancy. And hit that top up. Why? Why not? I think it just makes it all the better. Okay? So I got that. Next thing I'm going to do, and these are some things I've learned, okay? If you don't put this around the side of your pie, the side of your pie is going to cook faster than the rest of your pie, and it's going to get burned, and nobody wants a burned pie.
So this is just aluminum foil protection?
Yep. You can even buy from cooking stores a thing that goes around a standard 9-inch pie crust, and that's what I'm using today. I forgot to mention that. But I just use foil and then put it in the back of your cabinet and forget about it and use it next time you make a pie. Another thing you want to do, and I've learned from trial and error, trust me, don't be me, is put it on a cookie sheet. Not because I'm necessarily worried about it bubbling over, but if when you go to take it out hot, you might break off your pretty pie crust that you made, and you don't want to do that. So pop it in that 450-degree oven. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to bake it for only 15 minutes at this temperature. And then we're going to turn it down to 350. We are back again. 15 minutes have gone by. And if you remember, we have to turn the heat down. So turn it down to 350. 350, and also take out that the tin foil that you put around the crust to prevent it, because now we can let it cook for the rest of the 45. We're going to add 45 minutes of cooking time. I'm going to pull off that real quick. And Dan, you could almost show a little bit of what they can see where I'm coming from. You can see that. Now it's all going to brown evenly. Go ahead, give her a shot. We got our timer set for 45 minutes. We turn down the heat. One thing I want to mention here, and it's on the sheet that we'll go to at the end so you can see, is I'm cooking from a high elevation. Where I'm at in the mountains, it's about I'm at about 4,000, I think, feet. Does that sound about right, Daniel?
Heck if I know.
Okay, so when you're at higher elevations, you have to bake things, it seems, longer. So you might want to only, if you're at a lower elevation than me, start checking it at 30 minutes. Just peek, turn on your light in your stove and just peek. And when it gets to the color of doneness that you want, golden brown, then go ahead and take it out. Mine has to go longer because that's just the way it seems to be here cooking at higher elevation. So I will see you in 45 minutes when I pull the pie out. See you then. All right, so I'm going to knock about 12, 13 minutes off that time. And the reason is because it looks done to me. And I'm doing that, judging that by the color, and I'd say it's done. So there's our pie. Always know that about baking. The times that you see in recipes, those are a guideline, right? So mine was done 13 minutes ahead of time. We'll let it cool and we'll dig in. I still have extra rhubarb, so tune in for the next video, and I'm going to show you how to make a really easy rhubarb crisp that's actually kind of a little healthy. So it's Naturally Nat. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, weekend, wherever you're at, and we'll see you next time.